now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet brothers, creatures of the night.
All right, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. As you all know, the usual format of the podcast has been different for the last few episodes, as we have been recapping episodes of our hit TV show, The Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans, as it's been airing every Tuesday on Shudder and AMC+. And today will be the last of our recap episodes. So we'll be recapping episodes 7 and 8 of the series, and we'll be returning to our regular format on the next episode of the podcast. Joining me as always is my sister in darkness and the other half of the Boulet Brothers Swan Thula, and our co-host and supervising producer of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans, Ian DeVogler.
Oh my God,
so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We are both excited, although I will say we did get our junior men's meeting clipped a little short. I wasn't expecting to come in so early, but as always, so happy to be here.
We'll pick up later.
Oh, I can't wait.
Well, listen, so we're reviewing 2 more episodes of the show today. So how are you feeling? Because we're like definitely past the midway point. We're starting to get close to the end. So how are you all feeling about how the season is going so far?
It's surreal to me. You know, it's surreal because we pour everything and all of our creativity and so much of our mojo into the creation of the show. And I think that there's so much tension and anticipation of it, like just getting in front of an audience and what that's going to feel like and all of the feedback. And then it's like almost over in a flash.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that we're already going on to these episodes. We're way more than halfway through the show. The pack is narrowing down. The crown is within view. It just goes by so quickly. I wish this meal could be savored for much longer.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to back that up, and I'm going to back that. I'm going to
back that thing up. You better back it up.
I'm going to back that fake personality up right on that. But I'm going to agree. I think that it is really surreal. You know, we have been sort of in deep discussion and active work on Titans for, I mean, to spill a little behind the scenes tea, I think actively for what now, like 8 months?
Oh, yeah, at least because we got word of it while we were on tour in the UK, I believe.
Swan's counting it out.
Yeah, I think it's 9 months. Somewhere around March, April, and now we're going into December, so.
Oh, I mean, that tracks his mama. I'm ready to have this baby.
I mean, now that you put it that way, actually, it seems like it's been longer. That's a lot to get accomplished in 9 months.
Totally. And that brings me to what I wanted to say. When you asked, how do we feel and how has the reception been? Like, I think that there are a couple of different things at play, but one thing I will say is that the reception from the fans has been overwhelmingly positive. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that because we're so bogged into the minutia of it all the time. But congratulations, ladies. Like, the season is fucking slaying.
Yeah, congratulations.
We deserve it. We all do.
Oh my God.
Well, I think we can say too, like, this is the most watched season of the show ever.
Yeah.
And it's the most watched series on Shudder, period.
Period.
Which is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
look, it was a lot of work. I think we all put our all into it. I think the competitors put their all into it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think everyone deserves the praise that the show's getting.
You know, there's another aspect that I really appreciate too. I think we've said this before on the podcast, but I think it's worth saying again. We've gotten kind of good at really focusing our message because the jokes that we want and the tone that we wanted, the levity, even though there's been drama like swirling around, as there should be with every season, and there always seems to be, we wanted this season to seem fun. We wanted it to seem like sort of electrified and imbued with all of the things that make Dragula so weird and fabulous and crazy and fun. And all of that stuff was landing. Like, the audience have been responding in turn the way that we intended them to. Because we know sometimes we'll like, we're going to cast this person, or these jokes are going to land, or this is going to be so funny. And it just doesn't come across quite the way you anticipated it.
Isn't
and you're like,
that
how did
weird?
that happen?
Like, sometimes I know in previous seasons we'll be watching edits and I'm like, this person is so hysterical.
Yup.
People are going to love them. And then you watch it in a group and you're like, oh, no one's laughing. I'm like, what?
And it's so weird too, because when that happens, it's not even a like, oh, like, maybe it's not. It's like you can instantly tell. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, never mind.
Very, very strange.
Never
Or,
mind.
you know, there'll be jokes that we all internally talk about in the office or on set or meetings, and then we're like, people are gonna live for this, and then it's like crickets.
I know. Or like a viewing party, you're like, the part's coming.
It's coming.
Totally.
And they're
And then
like,
it's just
what?
like, can I Give me. Oh, I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the.
Oh, that is so
Don't
foul.
leave now.
Oh my God. We have like a sort of a psychic link of what we think is funny. And there are some times where even like with competitors, like I remember when we were on tour, we all became obsessed with this one line from Melissa B. Fierce in season 1. She's talking about like the fight with Xochitl in the wrestling challenge. She's like, well, she punched me too. And Mama, you couldn't have told us that shit wasn't funny.
Like that was the most hysterical, like stitch busting crack that anyone could ever say anywhere, and we said it all through England.
She punched me too.
She punched me too.
Over the Atlantic, all across the country. She punched me too.
But
like
then-
everywhere.
Doing the remaster while on tour. Don't forget we were doing that while we were working on.
Doing the remaster, doing pre-production, also touring shows every night.
We got the edit of that episode and we watched it and we were like, it's not that funny.
No, it's not. And we were doing Creatures of the Night like at one of the stops in the U.S. too. And I'm like, let me tell this story because it's so good. It's like a knee slapper, and I tell it was like crickets. Like they didn't give one fuck about it at all.
How does it feel? Because we're so personally connected to it, and then you sort of like reveal it for the world to see, and then everyone sort of picks it apart. I don't feel like fans have no idea what it's like from our end watching the show.
Yeah, I think I'll say that it's sort of a mixed bag. I think it's a mixed bag in both the like extreme highs and also sometimes the low lows. And by that, I mean, when the show comes out, there is like such an excitement and fervor. And when you talk to fans about the show and you really sit down to watch it, it's like, I'm so proud of the show. I love it. We pour our all into it. But then there's sort of the lows of, we have been working on this for a really long time. So it's almost that fatigue starts to set in. I'm kind of like, okay, like I can see the finish line, which is unfortunate because I hate to look at it as like a thing you have to sort of get past the finish line because it is so good.
Yeah.
But hi, we're human. Like I've been pregnant for 10 months. I'm ready to have this baby.
I think it's also the drama, you know what I mean? Because look, this is work, right? This is like our job. It's to make a reality show and we try to make entertainment so people love it. And yes, it has to be dramatic and all the things that a good reality show are.
Yeah.
But when it spills off screen into the audience, and it usually does, right? At least recently, that's the part that I think is weird. And I think it's weird for the competitors and it's weird for the people that work on the show and everything. And it gets kind of ugly. I noticed with the Real Housewives, and I think me and you have talked about this, Swan, like it's happening with their shows too, where the fans are getting so enraged and nasty. And, you know, they're taking a break from doing Beverly Hills now because,
Really?
yes, they're literally taking a break because they're like, we need the audience to cool down. It's too much. Like, I feel like they think they can't make the show because it gets dangerous for all of them, you know? It's so hateful and weird. And so I feel like we see that with our competitors too. They're experiencing that as we're experiencing it. And I would say that's the part of doing the show that I don't like.
And not to single any group of people out or any sort of like group of fans out, there's almost a view sometimes that the competitors, that they're not people, they're just characters on the screen. And so you'll see these nasty tweets come out and it's like, wow, I can't believe someone would say that. But then if you ever saw that person in real life, or these will be the same people who will come to the meet and greets, be like, oh, I love the show. I love this. I love it. I'm like, well, why would you say that? Oh, I don't know. I was just bored. I'm like, that is really scary to me.
All right, so we all know the internet sucks or whatever, but is there anything that we can share with listeners? Because I think they want to hear our opinion on the show or what our experience is like. So is there anything we can share from these last couple of episodes that maybe didn't make it onto the show that are like little interesting tidbits or anything?
Tidbits from us?
I'll fill the air with something unrelated while you guys think about tidbits, because I just want to say this. These competitors are amazing. Like, all of them are great. To come on the show and really put your art out there is not an easy thing to do. Challenge after challenge after challenge, the way that they might be perceived, like, you know, Eva is performative or Astrid is annoying, like whatever it might be. I think reality TV boils your personality down to your essence, you know? But at base, Eva is an incredible stage performer, just absolutely gifted. Astrid is quirky and unusual and an amazing artist in their own right, too. So when I think back at all of these eliminations and all of the challenges and the way that they all rise to the occasion, some to greater success than others, I just think that they deserve all the applaud and accolades that the world can give them, because it's not an easy thing to do. And just like them, you know, they think like, well, how can this didn't make it on the show, or that didn't make it on the show. I said this, I said that. That happens for us too. You know, we sit in the judging booth and we say a lot of different stuff when we deliberate, and only some of that kind of makes it to the final cut. So I think fans might even think that, oh, Swan thinks this of this person and Drac thinks that of that person. And part of us probably does, but we have a lot more to say about the competitors than what you might see on the show. So I just wanted to make sure I put it out there. everyone we're huge fans of. And this has been true season after season, and it's definitely, no less true than Titans. They're all amazing artists.
Absolutely. I think that bears repeating. Honestly, every episode, every time we talk about it, I feel like we try to push that forward, and because it's the reality, like we would not cast people who we didn't think were worthy of that sort of like praise or accolades. And I think this cast is great. You're reminding me of just kind of a funny behind the scenes moment with the cast. Like, I get to see the cast off screen a lot. And, if for anyone who has ever worked in film and television, they'll know there's a lot of waiting that happens. And, with the Boulet Brothers Dragula, there's a lot of waiting that happens in full drag. And so one of the things that just always cracks me up is, the competitors will be in full drag and they'll sort of be just kind of waiting. It's like, hey, well, how much longer? I'm like, I can't give you a full timeline, but I'll just tell you, it's going to be an hour. It's like, oh, okay. And I'll come back and it's like Victoria is laying on the ground in her full sea monster outfit, just like asleep or something like that. And it's always so like, I love this kind of shit where it's like, you have all the wrestling looks, for example. It's like full prosthetics and you have lizards and all this stuff just hanging out, eating food, just like chilling. And it's like, I wish people could see that because it's so fun.
Yeah, those moments are golden. I kind of want to just remind everybody that episode 1 was a double length episode. That was basically like 2 hours of Dragula. And in a 10-hour series, that's 2 down. And that means there's only really technically 9 episodes. So if you start doing the math and counting backward, this is like just an official announcement because some of you may already know this. The finale will air on December 20th, which is really like the 9th installment. The first episode being 2, so technically kind of 10. So like get your big girl panties on because we're going to have a new Titan super monster coming up in a few short weeks.
Oh my God, our pre-Krampus gift.
Are you trying to avoid getting attacked for having 9 episodes instead of 10?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm like, it is what it is. It's 9 fantastic episodes. Enjoy.
And also, I'm sorry.
Wait, bon appetit, bitch.
I would also like to say, I think the fans have been very well fed this season. I'm like, for any of you like numbers queens out there, my workbook girls, just look at the run times of these episodes.
Yeah.
Mama, these episodes be long as hell. So get into
you
it.
don't get more for doing a longer episode. We just want the content out there. And the first couple of episodes were so long, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like,
none of that shit matters. We're going to get whipped up in a few weeks anyway. Once
that's
they
all right.
figure that
Ooh,
out.
Bring it
put me in your
on.
On that
Krampus sack.
note, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. Are you just dying to experience the terror of Dragula live on stage? Then get your tickets for the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans Tour, coming to destroy a city near you. Available now at dragulalive.com. Do it now or die. Welcome back, and now it's time to dig into episode 7 of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans, which is the Sea Monster Challenge.
Ahoy, mateys.
all right, so let's talk about this entrance boudoir.
Yes.
So everyone comes back into the boudoir
Mhm.
and
Coco immediately knew what was up. As soon as Eva started putting on the show, Coco was like, I don't think so. I don't
Mhm.
think so at all.
Yeah, Coco looks over to the coffin and she's sort of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Which I think is really interesting because there's a lot of conversation this season amongst the cast that's sort of, hey, you have to vote someone to go home, or who do you think should go home and why? And everyone wants to play this sort of like, well, we're all friends and like, I'm going to be diplomatic and whatever. But I'm like, okay, but the second that it's 2 people stay and no one goes home, suddenly you see everyone being like, well, someone's got to go home. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, so the game matters now.
It's just
Yeah.
more suffering, right? We all have to suffer a little bit longer. And speaking of suffering, this fright feat, ooh, that's a little suffering right there.
Yes, I feel like this fright feat is the most intense fright feat that we had of this season. And it makes me think about in season 4, where we had the latex bed extermination, which I would consider to also be probably one of the most intense ones. But as listeners at home may know, I do all the fright feats, I do all the exterminations, and I love it. I revel in it. And for whatever sick, fucked up reason, it's fun. And this one is definitely level 10 horror suffering. Like if you have a fear of enclosed spaces or of drowning, it is a ghoulish experience. So of course I'm like in the tunnel and it's like it's starting to fill up with water and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then I'm under the water and I was like, am I gonna fucking die? Oh my god. But like, I don't know. I've this is so weird. I found it so fun at the end. And I feel like that's the thing that I love about the fright feats is like when you overcome your fears, like maybe this is like part of the point of the show, maybe fuck. Like, you know, there's sort of like an exhilarating feeling of like, I was afraid of this thing and then I overcame it and I conquered it. And like, I can look back on it and be like, wow, that was a fun time where everyone almost drowned on set.
Well, I think part of it is like, you know, the mechanic, right? So
Sure.
you're sort of testing. It's the same thing like when we first did the trap door.
Yeah.
Like when we all did that.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of at least knew there was a trap door, right? Which maybe took a little bit. I mean, it still was scary, but still, you know, like
Yeah.
whereas if you're in the competition and you just didn't
100%.
even know there was a trap door there and we're like, go up these stairs and then you're like, for what? You know, you know what I mean? Like that's a little different. So I think it's, even though we know we're like, you're not going to die. Obviously we wouldn't have you do it if you're not, but if I got into that water tank thing, I mean, and no one told me the mechanic, I would not be happy about that at all. Like that would be terrifying.
Oh no, it's terrifying. But for me, it's not the water. It's the confined little tunnel.
Me too.
Like, I can't deal with it.
Same.
Like,
Me too.
I do hate it. Like for me, I'd have to like prepare my mind and just steel my nerves. And again, not for the water, just to go like worming through that little hole where you can't really move. Like to me, that's a terror.
I'm going to go do it because I feel like I want to do everything that they do because, you know, I don't want to ask them to do stuff they won't do. But it's not going to be as scary because I know, you know, I have the code.
And yours works.
So the fright feat was scary. I think it was especially scary for Coco.
Yes.
Which they talked about on the show. I think they ended up talking more about it in a later episode, so I don't want to spill too much about it right now. For the most part, I think this was maybe the scariest extermination so far, would you say?
I think this one is going to incite reaction in people. When you see this and just you're so out of control of your own fate. I mean, like drowning can happen just like that. So yeah, I think this one, the fear factor is like really high on this one.
Well, this one pinged really high on a lot of people's radars when the trailer came out. That was something I was really excited for, is we got to put this footage in the trailer, and I think Eva is featured in the trailer, and it's sort of like, you know, welcome to hell, and then she's drowning.
Like girls, we know how to put a trailer together.
Yes, honey.
But we didn't show stuff that didn't happen, which other shows do all the time. Like the Housewives will do that, and you'll watch the trailer and they'll put stuff in and you're like, I can't wait for that to come out. And then it comes out and it's like, or it doesn't come out at all.
Yeah. No, we're not going to say that we don't like package and present information to mislead the audience.
Just the slap.
Just the
slap.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we have to talk about it. I love all of the memes and like the Nancy Drewing of like, there's a blonde person in the background of this slap. Who is it? It's going to be Abora. And then we got to, it's Coco in a little kitty cat wig.
In a little kitty cat wrestling wig.
Yes!
People were convinced that Abora was coming back again. And I'm like, God, that's a good idea. But
well, I think too, people were convinced that Abora was going to come back again in this one. Like I've seen so many people online being like, I really thought that it was going to be Abora comes back, someone quits the fright feat. And I'm like, Mama, we're at the end of the season. She ain't coming back.
We're saving her for the finale. Duh.
Well, we do mention, like in this boudoir, Eva or Hoso says it, that there are consequences, that there's going to be a save, that a consequence is going to be paid later. And I'm just going to spill the tea now. The consequence is Abora comes back.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so we get into the boudoirs. Everyone's working on their outfits, and there's some drama here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Eva and Astrid kind of get into it. And I think this ties back to the cauldron from last episode, right?
Yeah, because in the previous episode's cauldron, Eva sort of gives this impassioned speech. You know, my name is Eva Destruction, for fuck's sake. And she sort of is, you know, like putting herself in the center and saying, hey, I'm not going to go home, and here's why. And one of the things she mentions is, I'm respectful to everyone, whether it's in front of the cameras, you know, to my fellow castmates, or even, you know, to the people behind the cameras. And Astrid sort of takes that very pointed at her. She's like, are you talking about me? And Eva's like, no, girl, but kind of if the shoe fits, wear it.
And so there's this disconnect that I don't know if it comes across in the conversation that, you know, they've said, oh, you know, and they reference it on the show, like Astrid has said stuff or been negative towards the production or whatever, you know, and Astrid's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, it's very like that.
It's very, well, I've just shared my feelings. I'm just being honest with them. Somewhere in one of these episodes, Melissa's like, you do talk shit about production. You're the first one to do it. I think it actually comes a little bit later in the episode. So there's this questioning of, and maybe it's like a self-awareness thing. Like, is Astrid aware that maybe sharing their feelings, even in a very kind of raw way, could that come across as like you're being a little bit, maybe out of bounds with some of the production crew?
The thing is, Astrid did do that. Yeah. I'm saying it now. Like, here it is. Like, and I don't necessarily think that was Astrid consciously being like, let me be difficult to film with. I don't think they understand like how they were being difficult or why it came off as difficult, but it was. And I think other people that maybe, I don't know, are more acclimated to being on camera like that, they see how it's disruptive. And I think that's maybe where the disconnect is, right?
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Or even just sort of going with the flow a little bit, which I think is really what Melissa is sort of like touching on in that moment, where she's like, okay, cool, it's hard, or okay, maybe this didn't go your way or whatever. But on Melissa's season, like she had said in a previous episode, Mama, it was 1,000 degrees. There was no air conditioning. Like, Melissa has been through it all. So to have someone sort of, I'm just talking about my feelings. She's like, well, shut up. Like, your feelings, yes, they're valid, but at the same time, like, why are you complaining?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think, too, Melissa saw the production company in various states of success, right? From where we started to where we are now and all that. And I think she knows how hard everyone behind the camera works to make everyone look good. So traditionally, it's seen as sort of offensive to buck at the people behind the camera at all. So I think maybe that's part of where the disconnect is. And when Astrid came on in season 4, very well-oiled machine. There's a million people there. And, maybe it's easier to be like, oh, let me complain about this, or let me
take it for granted. Like, take that work for granted. I could see that. I don't think any of us are like pointing anything at Astrid per se.
No.
Because this is also like kind of under a microscope with tons of pressure, right? Like tons and tons of like pressure and factors and the competition and your own like, stressors and mental health and like all of these kind of things. And even coming down to like, when was lunch that day? Because some people like, me being one of them, when I don't eat for fucking 10 hours and I'm under lights and all this pressure, she gets crabby. She gets snappy. You don't want it.
But that's where I think the disconnect comes from, and the origins of some of this stuff. Similarly with Eva, who is also, there's this smoke that sort of floats around Eva that she's being inauthentic, right? And that she's being duplicitous. And I think that's the same. It's the same kind of stuff. Do you guys agree?
I think so. I mean, this is kind of what I was like hinting at earlier. It's not that Eva is performative or this one is manipulative or that one is a brat or whatever. I mean, maybe in essence, if you had 1 million people looking at you and they had to like boil you down to one or two, like oftentimes negative adjectives, yes, those things come out. And in some ways, I think the show can be a mirror for some people. Mm-hmm. And if you're not ready to look at your negative attributes, it's really difficult to watch the show. As one of the competitors, I can think of many. But, but even myself, too, like I'm under that same mirror. When I look back at season 1 and I look at some of the performances that I was giving, it's cringy. Like, I've come a long way, too. And I can look at myself and be objective, but I'm not sure that it's the easiest thing for competitors to see their first time on television or their second time on television for like a full season to say, yes, I do have some of these traits. And yes, it's out there for people. It's not all that I am, but it's part of who I am.
I try to talk them through it before they come on the show. And I feel like they're so excited to be on the show that it literally goes in one ear and out the other. Because we tell them, we're like, who you are on this show is not who you are as a person. You need to separate them and not take that inside. Like, the pictures that are, scrambled together on our screen does not define who you are, and you can't let it do that. But that's a hard concept to absorb, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with this being our first time having a full season where competitors are coming back, I think everyone is sort of hyper conscious of, how am I going to come off? How is this going to be interpreted by fans when this fully gets packaged and sort of sent into the real world? And I think with Eva, what I notice is that she is trying to sort of keep the peace with everyone. Like, I think that Eva is trying to play ball and trying to give commentary and give feedback to people, but she doesn't necessarily want to hurt people's feelings.
Right.
And I think that if you have a keyhole view into that and you're only seeing, hey, you said this in the cauldron, but then you said something to me later, for Eva, she's not trying to be duplicitous, but I do think that certain characters could look at that and be like, well, wait a minute, just have the consistent through line. Like, don't try to play both sides.
Yeah. You have to just trust the process. The people that are the most successful at reality TV, just give it up and trust the process. Do whatever in the moment, react exactly in that moment, and that's how you're successful. And I think that's what gives off the feeling of duplicity when you try to like think you're part of the production, right? You're like, well, I filmed this and now I'm filming this. And so now I have to say something different. I'm like, just don't try to plan it out. Don't try to produce yourself. Just be real in the moment, right?
I think it's really, really difficult for people to actually do that. Like in concept, it's so simple, but then you're like, well, oh my God, I'm going to be in front of an audience. People are going to see me. They're going to see my personality, my drag. You know, it's like, and they just can't remember the simple thing of like, just be in your body, be in your skin, do your best, and trust the production, right? Like trust that we're going to take care of you as an artist, like artist to artist. But we've been saying that since season 1.
But that's the problem, right? Because once you don't, then it's over. Then you start getting these weird feelings. And I think the audience is probably starting to see this. And this is where the cracks in the cast are starting to show to me at this point in the competition, when there's questions of, is Astra being professional and is Eva being duplicitous? These are the effects of sort of like not being 100% on board with the process. That's what I think. And that's what I think audiences are starting to see.
I think it's complicated though, because like, okay, I'm looking at Hoso's character, right? I think Hoso in season 4, you saw her in a very specific way. Hoso in Titans, you know, the negatives are coming up, and what are they? They're like, oh, she's like insensitive or she's being like manipulative. And I kind of feel like Hoso is fully on board for the process, gives it up and shows exactly who they are. But in their case, it's a little different because I think it's a matter of like sensitivity, maybe even like maturity. I don't know. I'm not trying to judge Hoso, but it's a complicated stew of feelings and attraction and competition. And even though Hoso is like all in on like the production, I think they're still showing cracks. The audience is like coming for them. It's a kind of a different example.
Yeah, well, I think also too, to go back to the audiences see sort of a distillation of who you are. They maybe see like one personality trait and then they'll say, well, that's you forever. And I think that everyone can say, hey, like, have there been situations in my own life or situations with my best friend, for example, who they've done something that I didn't really understand or appreciate, or I just didn't like the way that they handled a certain situation. Okay, great. But then maybe you talk to them later and you sort of got to the bottom of it. What you're seeing on screen is Hoso handling a situation and maybe you not liking how she handled it and sort of boiling that down and being like, oh, well, Hoso is XYZ. And it's like, is that true? Or is it actually that Hoso handled this in a way that you just don't like?
Exactly.
Yeah, Hoso did not say,
that.
hey, please bring me on the show and bring these two people that I'm romantically involved with. She didn't ask for that. So I think she's trying to adjust on the fly, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, we see that in other shows too, where you're like, someone will be great, they're a fan favorite, and then you bring in their sister on the next season, and then suddenly there's a different energy.
And they turn into an evil witch.
Yeah.
It's all of the cast, right? Like even Victoria was the reason that she tried to break up the triangle. It's like the stressors that she was feeling in the boudoir. She's like, I don't like the way people are acting around me. It's stressing me out. It's affecting the competition. I'm going to do this. Some people might see that as like, you know, shady or manipulative or like disrupting the integrity of the competition by putting up someone who, air quotes, didn't deserve it. And Melissa too, like Melissa's personality, you know, she's like, this isn't resonating with like the realness that I feel at my core. And, you know, we see that bubble over in this episode.
The truth is, we do not have bad people on the show. Everyone on the cast is a great person. Like none of them are awful to be around, or everyone played ball. Everyone, I would love to spend time with them. We're going to go on tour with all of them. So you're just seeing them it's like, you know, you're putting them in a weird rat trap and watching them for 6 weeks. I mean, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Of course, they're going to have extreme reactions just like anyone would. So I just hope audiences like go easy on them and don't judge them for that, because it's just the circumstance, honestly.
I want to take this moment to segue to the guest judges, which is like, it's all family this episode, which I was very excited about. This was a really fun episode to be a part of.
Yeah.
I think the floor show is beautiful. I love the theme. The way that the costumes and the looks kind of manifested was impressive. And then to have Saint and Dali be on the judges block with us, I'm like, this just feels right. This feels so good. And these are examples of two people that absolutely trust the process. They really kind of stripped away the self-producing and all that kind of stuff, and just that awareness. And they said, I'm just going to be me, whether that's what they were used to seeing me on a couple of seasons ago. Now I'm doing like this weird clown drag. Hope people are into it and people love it, you know? And Saint really just stripped all of the protective shells and showed us like raw emotion during a period where I felt like it was really poignant and kind of rose to the top in Resurrection and went on to do very well in season 4. These are examples of competitors that come on, show us who they really are at their raw and at their core, trust the process, and we get amazing stuff out of amazing artists. And then they join us on the judges panel, which is impressive and earned.
Also, it's hard to do. Like, I think one of the things I think about is when we had asked Saint to be a guest judge on the show. And I think Saint sort of knew that something was cooking in the background because, we were always working on the tour. I remember when I talked to her, I was like, hey, would you like to be a guest judge? And her response was effusively like, oh my God, yes, thank you. I'm so excited. I want to make you guys proud. I want to be a good guest judge. And I feel like she did an amazing job. And so did Dali. Like, they were incredible. As guest judges, can be very difficult.
I think, too, Dolly has a really special insight into the show because Dolly was on season 2. They became a completely different drag character, you know, and they've seen the show evolve over time. And I feel like they have a lot of insight into the idea of Dragula and what does Dragula stand for and what are we looking for in a winner and things like that. So, and Saint, similarly, you know, if you want to talk about someone coming back and changing their destiny, Saint is that person.
Absolutely.
Because when Saint was on season 3, we saw this raw potential in her, but she wasn't there yet. You know, we kind of saw that and we hoped that she would grow really fast on the season. It didn't happen. But then when she came back to Resurrection, it was like full force Saint. So I feel like the two of them had probably the most unique insight into what a winner of Titan should be, right?
Yeah,
because they know
absolutely.
everything about the brand. They've seen it grow from where it was to where it is today, and they can tell these people everything they need to know about how to redefine their drag character.
Allow me to do what I do and just keep it real surfacey. We looked fucking good on this episode. I mean, we looked
Say
damn
it
good in this episode.
again.
I wasn't sure about this robe, and I'm like, is this gonna? Oh, God, this robe. I don't know. And then I saw it on even just the raw before we edited or anything. I was like,
Oh my
Well,
God.
let's be honest.
good. And then when we pan back and we see Saint and Dolly, all of us, I'm like, the whole panel looked deadly gorgeous.
Very true.
And no one knows the hot lingerie that was under that robe because we decided not to show it. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
That was what the look was supposed to be. And then we decided to be like, no, maybe we'll
That's
keep it.
the secret tour reveal.
Yeah.
To the tour
Mention
only.
it all.
But we did wear it at the Halloween ball.
Yes.
Yeah, we did
Yes.
wear it for the second segment, I think, on Friday night.
Oh,
Anyway,
right,
well,
right.
I'm sorry.
Very,
Well,
very
not-
VV sexy.
Not to gloss over, like, these are moments that I just love me. Like, you guys showed up in the look, and I was like, mouth agape, hands. I was like, oh my God, you look so hot. Ah!
You screamed like you did when you were the ringside announcer.
Literally.
let's move on to the challenge, right? So we have
Yeah.
great guest judges.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Sea Monster Challenge, which is inspired by episode 5 of season 1.
Yeah.
And so here we are. We've already set our ideas, obviously, on this challenge. What did you think
Yeah.
of the looks?
I'm going to have to just go with the judging on this one because when I saw Eva in the floor show proper, I was like, oh, mama, she ate. Mama, she ate.
That's
like
true.
bottom of the ocean depths, like this like creature just sort of like reaching out for almost sort of like predator and prey at the same time. And then the face reveal. I'm like, mama, the face card never declines, honey.
Yeah,
She looked
so good.
damn good.
I felt weird judging this episode because it's getting to the point where like everything on the stage is kind of amazing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I even talking about here? I'm like, they're all great, you know, but you have to sort of find these nitpicky things.
Except for Hoso's leggings, right?
Well,
Oh my God.
if I nitpicked it, honestly, you
Yeah,
know, like
I'm just-
I would
I'm
not
giving you a hard
normally. If it
time.
was episode 2, I'm sure I wouldn't even have said anything about that. But you have to really start examining close, right? Because they're sort of passing every level of judgment. And so you're like, okay, well, let's go to the shoes because, like, what else are you going to do?
I
Yeah.
do want to shout Hoso out, not for the shoes, because the shoes are a choice, but for her makeup in this episode. Because watching it back, Hoso is so freaking talented when it comes to painting her own face.
Mhm.
Like, looking at her, it's this sort of almost pained expression on this character, but then like the mouth opens and there's these blackened teeth, and it's just so weird looking. I mean, like a literal creature from a nightmare.
She's
Yeah.
the granny hag from Hellfish.
Yeah. Damn.
Yes. Oh my
Damn,
God, yes.
Diva.
So, okay, the looks are great. We all know that. Yeah, even like with Victoria, I think there was conversations of like, but is it? I'm like you weren't as huge of a fan of Victoria's look, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will spill my own tea on
Calling
this
you
one.
out.
Yeah, I'm like, mention it all. Vicky, I love you, but here we go. I don't love the fit of this one. Like, the fit fell flat for me. I think that Victoria is so talented. And, you know, when you see this outfit, it's like everything that Victoria is wearing, she made. You cannot touch her on that. However, when she's sitting in the cauldron. You
see that's what I knew. I knew that's what it was for you. It was the fish fupa.
Fish
it was the
fupa
fish fupa
forever.
But because Javi, she didn't make the outfit to sit down
you
in.
are so dead wrong.
But look, she did not make that outfit to sit down in. When she was standing up, it wasn't like that. And I know how you are. I know you were fixated on that area when she was sitting down on the cauldron.
Oh my God, not me fixated on her
you
area.
Were fixated on the area.
She was fixated on that fishy fupa.
And you know what? Honestly, I was. Yeah, no. Sorry, Vicky.
I think the competition really speaks for itself. I mean, the ghouls at this level are just performing on all cylinders across the board. It wasn't a difficult decision to pick the winner, though. I think the looks were all there. The performance, though, Eva really just knocked it out of the park.
Eva deserved the win.
She absolutely did.
Yeah.
There were so many beautiful things on the stage. It was a great day to be on the Dragula set.
Absolutely.
But it might not have been a great day to be in the Dragula cauldron because things like really came to a pointed head, and this was tough. This was tough to be on set and just see how this scene unfolded.
Yeah, there's something, I don't remember who says it earlier in the episode. Maybe it's Coco, but someone makes the comment that there's something just different with Melissa's energy that day. And you could feel it. Like on set, you could just feel like Melissa just wasn't herself that day. And sort of we get to the cauldron and then you see why. And I don't think anyone expected the way that this unfolded.
To me, this is a product of the generational divide of people coming back from season 1 and competing with people from season 4. That's the origin of all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's such a different beast. And I think to Melissa, now she may think differently about it watching the whole show unfold and the whole season. It might make more sense. But when she was in it, I think it seemed very put on and phony from some of the other competitors, who sort of were used to filming one way when she was used to filming another. And I personally think that's where it comes from.
I think so. I think this might be a complicated stew. There were some things going on at home. I think there was a lot of emotional kind of like background noise that kind of can affect someone's like ability to be present or even to be tolerant, right? Because we all have to tolerate a lot while we're shooting Dragula. I think we really do. Because the personal and physical things that you have to deal with, and then there's like everybody else. And I think sometimes the everybody else part can be the most difficult part.
I wondered if like while she was there, did she maybe get word or was the boyfriend maybe trying to reconnect or something in the background? And I don't know. I never talked to her about it. So this is complete speculation. But, almost sort of like tempting her like, hey, come home and fix your life. Like, because they're gone from their homes for so long. You know what I mean? Like it almost felt, I don't know, something like that. Because I know originally she was like, I don't want to go home because I'm going to go home to an empty apartment. So she was keeping her mind present in the competition. But I thought, I don't know, maybe that could have happened, I
mean, I don't know if it was necessarily the specter of, the ex-husband or that necessarily. But I do think that there was something. I mean, I know that there is something extremely isolating about being on the show. I mean, it's isolating working on the show. You know, it's like we all pour our all into it. And so could I imagine, Melissa's experience on season 1, very, very different. The way that it was filmed was very different. And there was just more access to the outside world. So for Melissa to sort of come into the world of filming Titans, where it is very isolating, and then to also find herself one by one, all of the people that she considers a friend or considers real on the show sort of are eliminated, and she's sort of left with like, these people aren't really being real with me and I'm isolated and alone. Like that can be that could be a real fright feat.
Yeah, absolutely. They're only human, right? These things wear on you over time, and this is probably 6 weeks in or something, you start to want to go home.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, all of us feel the same way. We're like, I love this show and I love these people, but can we please stop?
Ian DeVogler out. Good song.
Okay, so obviously we all know Melissa quits and is the one that is returned to darkness at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I read this as Melissa choosing when it came down to Melissa and Coco, because that was something that was out of everyone's control other than the judges. I choose to look at it as like this. Melissa is choosing Coco to go forward with her energy and like her kind of blessing, as opposed to like kind of terminating herself. I just think it was almost like a transference of momentum. Melissa was doing great. Melissa had just come off a win.
Yeah.
And this is like an emotional crunch, I felt like, for fans of hers and like fans of the show. This was like a difficult piece, but she decided to give all of that mojo to Coco and push Coco forward into the next episode. And
Yeah, I want to shout Melissa out because I think everyone who
Go ahead then.
Oh, can I? Oh, I'm gonna do it. Okay, I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna shout Melissa out because I think that everyone who listens to this show knows like we love Melissa. And Melissa in this moment, I feel like I see someone who has truly given it her all, which is I think the only thing that we really ask everyone to do. Like everyone comes onto the show and has their own goals, and we just ask them like, do your best, give it your all, like just give it 100%. And I feel like when Melissa has her moment in the cauldron and she starts to, you know, sort of break down, I just feel like I look at a person, I'm like, you've given it your all. And there's no shame in her saying, hey, I can't do this anymore. Coco, go forth and prosper. Do it for me.
I feel like she did it right. Like, I feel like she came into the competition with the right energy. She gave us truly who she is. And I appreciate her time on the show. I think it was fantastic to have her back on.
we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be covering the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans, Episode 8, Horror Icons. Hello, uglies. It's that special time of year again, so visit BouletBrothersDragula.com for brand new merch from the wicked world of the Boulet Brothers. T-shirts, keychains, stickers, vinyl copies of the Boulet Brothers debut EP, Time to Die, and a brand new shipment of exclusive merch has just become available at BouletBrothersDragula.com. So if you consider yourself a member of the Dragula Coven and truly practice the dark arts, spend all of your nether coins at BouletBrothersDragula.com. Do it now or die. Welcome back, uglies. We are moving right along to our recap of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Episode 8, Horror Icons.
So this is a big episode. This decides who our top 3 Titans are of the season.
And consequences need to be paid.
They do.
There's a debt, mama.
Nobody ever wants to go home, but, you know, at the end of the day.
Someone gotta win.
Exactly. So, okay, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to ask you all is, now where we're at in the season, are the people that made it this far the people that you expected to make it this far when we originally cast the series?
I'm going to say it like this. Yes, and.
Ooh.
Yes, and, because that's the first rule of improv. And on the note, it's a proper quote because I would have expected Abora to be here with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not everybody that I imagined would make it to the end is actually here, but I'm not surprised that these particular group of monsters did very well.
I'm going to agree with that. And I'm also going to throw in, I think that there have been a lot of surprises along the way. I think that when Yovska showed up and had her Halloween house party outfit, I was like, wow, Yovska is going to fucking crush this season. And then Yovska's look in episode 2 and her performance. So I think that everyone sort of goes home when they should have in the show, but I definitely was surprised a lot of the times along the way.
I never knew what to expect the whole time because similarly, I thought, I'm not sure what Yovska's going to bring. And then I was very impressed with the promo outfit and the episode 1 outfit. I was like, Yovska's going to make it far. Of course, we all thought Abora would make it far. Erica, too, I could have seen after her experience on episode 1, I could see the Phoenix from the Flame kind of come out. So you never know where that would have went. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think we would have cast any of these people if we didn't think they had the potential to make it through to the end. You just never know what circumstances are going to affect who makes it on. So
it's so true. And had grandmother bitch sent Kenzie the money, she might have been here too.
Absolutely. But I think that also speaks to the competitors are on their toes all the time. They don't know what's going to happen the next day. They don't know what twist is coming their way. And I think that it's a little bit of a minefield for them to navigate. So kudos to all of our surviving Titans at this point.
When people are like, oh, this was a plan or this person made it, I'm like, you give us a lot more credit than we deserve.
Honestly,
we couldn't. I never know what's happening week to week. For someone to think we could literally plot out when people go home and all that, I'm like, maybe other shows can do it, but the way we film our show, it's not possible.
Definitely. I feel like there is, at least for me, when we are in the filming of the show, when we're in production for the show, I feel like I wake up like, what fresh hell are we going to walk into today? It's always crazy.
100%. And speaking to that happens on this episode. At the beginning of this episode, everything comes to a head, right? There's like kind of a huge fight.
Yeah. And Coco came in to read.
Yeah.
Period. Like they might be on their toes.
Disrespectfully?
Fuck
all y'all.
My God.
Coco was very hot from Melissa and the way things went down with Melissa the episode before. And I think Coco's interpretation of it, is that, they weren't very supportive of Melissa in that moment. And so I think that really upset Coco. So Coco comes back in hot and wants to sort of like try to wake them up into seeing their point of view.
Yeah. And I think to a great degree of success. I mean, it got crazy for a minute and I was like, how are we going to come back from this place? But I think everybody kind of rallied around the moment and said, you know what? Melissa came in, she's real, she's fiery, and she has this appearance of being like very hard, but that realness is also soft at the core. And Coco recognized that and came in to say, you all need to recognize how someone was actually hurt and you did not rise to be part of this sisterhood that we often talk about. And we were able to come back from that. And I think it was maybe like a necessary pain that everyone had to kind of push through to be able to say, I see what we did and I maybe see what we should have done. And unfortunately, Melissa got a lot of that, the shortest end of the stick of that.
It's sort of subject to opinion, right? Because it depends on what your goals are. If you're there to win and you're not trying to make friends, maybe you're like, I don't owe Melissa anything. Okay, Melissa quit. So what? Maybe Coco wants to come at it with a little more, care and authenticity and, the longer game in mind. In the sense of like, hey, when I get off the show, I want to have authentic relationships with these people. And so your interest might be in playing it a different way.
Well, I think, too, Coco is almost responding to what everyone keeps saying, which is like, oh, we're a sisterhood. We're a sisterhood. These are my sisters and my sisters. But then when push comes to shove, she literally says, we had a sister walk out and no one said anything. So I think whether Coco is considering the long game or is more focused on the competition, she's almost calling everyone else out for saying, you all talk a big game about sisterhood. But then when sisterhood is coming to question, no one came to Melissa's defense.
I mean, in the drag world, that's accurate and that's real,
Yeah, you could almost just take out the word drag in the world. Like people generally tend to do that and treat other people that way.
Very
in
performative,
professional situations, certainly in competitions, like, even in family.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you say, how do we come back from this? And then I think everyone sort of does. And maybe this comes from my history of dating toxic men, but I feel like there's something to be said of like, you have to be willing to have these hard conversations with each other in order to grow. And I feel like there's a lot of people who would say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to shy away from it. But I'm actually really proud of the cast for saying, hey, like, we're going to hash this out right now.
I am happy with the way I think it turned out, the way the conversation went. Obviously, when, you film a show like this, there's millions more hours of content than what actually makes it on the final edit. And this fight was intense.
Yeah. There is another weird thing we had talked about earlier. I can't remember exactly what it was, but history sort of repeats itself. And for the weirdos in the audience here, there's always a blow up after the water challenge. And so in season 4, we have our Ghost Ship Glamour, which the cauldron is so beautifully spicy and wonderful. Like, ooh, it's a good stew in that cauldron. And then this season, we have our water themed episode, and then there's a massive blow up, and everyone is now kind of cool about it. I don't know, just weird.
Well, the same thing happened on season 1 with the sea monster challenge, and then the Last Supper was the next thing, which was also an explosion.
And also sort of a Melissa related explosion.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Something about putting Melissa in water.
Sometimes we're left with a lot of questions, especially after a big blow up. And what better way to answer those questions than a lie detector test?
And yes. Okay, so there's all these accusations going on around the cast.
Mm-hmm.
Eva's inauthentic. Astrid's doing this person's doing that. I'm like, so bring in the lie detector test. Let's find out, because I want to know, and I know the viewers at home want to know too. Who sabotaged Coco?
Yes.
We
these
said-
questions need to be
We
answered.
said we were going to get to the bottom of all these things during Judgment. And here we are. We brought out a lie detector, and we are going to get to the bottom of these
We've been
things.
asked many, many, many times, what are our favorite exterminations? And oftentimes
Oh,
I
yeah.
will reference back to season 2, the lie detector test, because it's such a goopy moment. Like, let me remind you of Bitch Pudding's face when we said, we won't take your word for it. We don't trust you that much, bitches. So we're going to get these lie detector, and her jaw just hit the ground. And I just love that moment forever. And it was just a pleasure to revisit it on Titans.
Absolutely. Again, speaks to, we do not plan this shit on that level. So when we're playing the season, we're like, oh, let's bring the lie detector back. Like, oh, how fun. We love it. We love it. We love it. Well, when do we do it? Let's do it right at the very end, because, we're about to find out who's going to become, one of our finalists for Titans. Couldn't have planned it better, because holy shit, there was so much to unpack.
Who knew? It came at the perfect time. And it sort of wrapped up a lot of the storylines that were happening during the season. So we discover, in a sad way kind of, that Astrid actually does not believe she has what it takes to make it through to the finale or to win, which is always hard to hear.
It's painful, for sure.
And then we sort of learn about Coco and the sabotage, which I actually don't think I still understand. Right? I'm like,
Look,
I don't know, but it's funny, so I don't really care.
Coco's been telling us since episode 1, she loves a little messiness in her drag, and she brought that right to the lie detector too. She was playing messy.
I live when Coco started answering yes to no questions and no to yes questions, and it was just one after another. The lie detector technician, deception. I'm like, Coco, like, oh my God. And you could just tell. She's like, on one hand, anticipating the shock and the pain that would bring, but also I think she was lit.
I do too.
We also found out that Eva is trying to give us her most genuine self. Like, there wasn't duplicity in her personality at all, which I thought was a very powerful moment for the cast to see too. It almost like clears Eva's name, like this hanging question of like duplicitous, performative, like, and all that. So it was nice to kind of put that to bed. But then the most poignant question was asked by the interviewer, Victoria Black. Did you put some titties on, bitch?
Oh my God.
I was
When he asked that, I was like, what is happening?
Yes.
Unhinged.
So good. Holy shit, I love this show.
It's interesting to think about this lie detector versus the season 2 lie detector, because I think the season 2 lie detector is just genius. And of course, the moment I always go back to is, did I say that I would slit her throat or that I'd stab her in the back? What's the difference, girl? And it's just so vicious. And this one almost has, oh God, dare I say, like a happy ending? Like, everyone basically says, I don't trust my sisters, quote unquote. Like, I don't trust the other people in this competition, but it almost brings them closer together.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is like, this lie detector treatment is like a remedy to all of the ailments that the cast had been like just kind of like persisting through. It's even on the other side of it. It was like lighter, the whole room. Everything felt like a little, there was levity. We laughed again at each other and at ourselves. It was good.
I mean, when I was a kid, I was really annoying. And then my parents shocked the shit out of me. And, I turned out okay.
We're going to have
Sometimes
to
you
remember
gotta
that. Yeah. We're going to get that dog collar out for season 5.
Yay!
I like to kind of give a little bit of
Yay!
behind the scenes tea every episode. So the behind the scenes tea on this episode is we got to shock an executive producer from AMC.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had a set visit that day from an executive producer that came on. I don't want to say who they are because they don't want people to know that we shocked them. But yeah, so we hooked them up. They volunteered. They were like so excited that we were doing the lie detector and they wanted to like experience everything. So we shocked the hell out of them and it was very rewarding.
We knew the show landed at the right network right at that moment.
I know. I was like, I loved it. Okay, so we're going on to, we know that it's a horror icons challenge, which is sort of inspired by season 4, but this is an evolution of that challenge. We want them to do more with it and they have to act out a scene.
Yeah, an iconic scene from their chosen icon.
Yeah, and so they go into their creative portion where they're sketching and working on their outfits and all that. And we feel a lighter vibe in the boudoir than I think probably we felt the whole season, right?
I think that there's a moment of levity in the wrestling challenge with their wrestling wigs, but this is definitely a huge reprieve from the pressure of the undersea kerfluffle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, they're having fun. They're doing the Scream reenactment thing, which I think was really cute.
That was so great. And
Yeah.
Victoria was loving every second of being the murderer.
Yeah. And, they're working on their stuff. Then we go into our judges for this episode. So to me, I think these are the perfect judges for a Horror Icons challenge. We have Joe Bob
Absolutely.
Briggs, who we know is just legendary in the horror world and has a lot of great insight. To me, I was like, if you want someone to give you insight on winning a competition like this, Joe Bob definitely has a lot to offer.
A living, breathing, walking encyclopedia of horror. And then Harvey Guillen, who I just God, I love Harvey so much. I mean, they were great on season 4, but to have Harvey back and just everything that they bring to the set, you could tell he's just loving being on set with us again. It was so great to have them. And I'm even more obsessed with what we do in the shadows now than I was then. So it was just right.
It's interesting because I think when we think of horror icons, at least our generation, you think of certain figures.
Mm-hmm.
And to a lot of people, like what we do in the shadows is an iconic, established, successful horror brand. And people
Absolutely.
will think of Harvey Guillen's character, Guillermo, when they think of a horror icon, or even, the new Sabrina that was on Netflix. These are new
For a
horror
younger
icons.
generation,
Yeah,
for sure.
different generations. And I think even we're in a way a part of that. You know what I mean? Like our star has risen in this last decade, and that's sort of like that people look at us in the same way that like maybe other generations would look at like Vampira or Elvira or things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And we see that obviously reflected in Coco's Choice for their horror icon, which
iconic.
Yeah. Coco hid that from everyone, and no one knew until the floor show. And I was very shocked because we were very worn down at this point. Like I said earlier on the same episode, I think we had a moment of, I need to be done with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really refueled me personally.
Yeah. Dare I say I got a little emotionally stirred, by that time in the season too. Like I think we're all fatigue has set in. You're just kind of stripped of all of your defenses. And it's like, yeah, let's get this over with. And I found out Coco was doing us as their inspiration. It was like, wow, it really kind of, it got me a little emotional, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I thought it was really cool, her choice for her chosen moment to do the floor show introduction and to also have her chance to do sort of the dynamics. I mean, I remember when I saw the cut of this episode for the first time and the dynamics music starts again, the Boulet Brothers intro thing, which you can listen to on Spotify and all major music streaming platforms. I was like, wait a minute. Like, I was like writing my notes. I'm like, this is a mistake. Like, we've done it again. And then I saw Coco. I was like, oh my God, yes.
It was it made me smile.
Me
from
too.
ear
I
to
was
ear.
so happy. I was so excited for them. It was flattering. It was awesome. It was like so surprising. Like it was just nothing but a joy.
We go through, we watch all the floor shows. We get with Joe Bob and Harvey and discuss them all. I mean, once again, everyone was fantastic. And I know that there's going to be feelings about who stayed and who went.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to add a little more insight into that. So look, these competitors are incredible. We're nitpicking things. But what I will say, what made the 3 stand out that did, is that I felt their floor shows were a little more elevated in concept. It was more than just bringing a good look to the floor show.
Yeah.
That's what we had been doing up until that point. But this episode where you're deciding who's going to be the top 3, I think it called for a little more. And I felt that the 3 that made it through are the ones that had the most thought out concepts. And it wasn't just sort of like a great look.
I'm going to agree. If you look at what Hoso did, it was very much a reinterpretation and outside of the box, very fashionable. Vicky
It's kind of in the box.
In
And
the
then
box,
in the
inside the
box,
TV,
and then
outside
in the box,
the
and then
tape,
in the box.
And then in the
hair,
well,
costume,
and then
all of it. Yeah, I'm just going to agree all the way around with what you're saying.
Yeah, same.
And she was great. I mean,
And she was
Hoso,
great.
And
It was great.
it was good, and it was good, as Victoria would say.
Line. No, but I mean, okay, well, speaking of Vicky, this was, I'm going to redeem myself as, a fan club member of the Victoria Elizabeth Black House. For Victoria to push herself out of her comfort zone and to do this line delivery as the Crypt Keeper, I was really impressed with her because we all know the Victoria special effects unmatched. But to see her say, hey, I'm going to redeem myself in an acting challenge, sort of my own design, I was like, okay, ballsy, go
Exactly.
for it.
And the look was smaller. It was still very well done, still had great special effects, but she was not relying on a big giant float of a costume to kind of carry her through. She's like, I'm going to bring my look, smaller and deliver lines, and didn't skip a beat. She was
No.
fantastic.
I mean,
at
Harvey
it.
gave her huge accolades and
deserved
feedback to
ones.
saying,
Yeah.
like, have you done voice acting before? Because if not, you could really look into this. I mean, maybe the Crypt Keeper the actor is no longer with us and you could take over that role. She did such a great job of it.
Yep. And Coco did amazing as us. There is a certain way that we tend to deliver lines and poses and stuff. It was hard to watch. Not hard. It was like hard to judge, I guess, right? Because it's kind of surreal, right?
No, it was. But she served it with all the cuntness that it deserved.
I agree. Very, very, very happy with their performance and their look. Hoso also fantastic. I mean, obviously they won the challenge, so we know that, to me when I was watching it, it was kind of terrifying. It was the horror of the horror icon. Yeah, it was. I think Hoso did fantastic. I thought that was Hoso in her element.
Yeah. To watch Hoso's performance that day too, you could just tell there was like electricity in the air.
Oh yeah.
There was something like sparking off the stage when Hoso went out there and was just giving
that old TV.
Look, it was a lot. And it was a very deserved win.
The stage was still wet from the Sea Monster challenge. You plugged the TV in, sparks are flying, mama.
So likewise, I thought Eva did a great job of sort of capturing the essence of Mars Attacks. I think, as always, Eva's strength lies in her performance and delivery. And she embodied that character.
100%.
Maybe it wasn't, a super original reinterpretation. It almost suffered a little bit from like what Betty did in season 4 when Betty did Elvira.
Yeah.
It was a little maybe too close to the source material. And it didn't necessarily go anywhere. But the look was great. The presentation was great.
Yeah.
We're just at the finale,
Yeah, all the references were correct. She really gave a huge performance with that character. And I want to say Astrid's look too, it was cool. And for me, there was something poetic about completing the Alien versus Predator moment that she created in season 4 and kind of bridged their experience into the Titan season. It was cool. It was smart. I just think at this stage, it was the right time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that Astrid says something in the episode that's always stuck with me, and I'm not sure if she meant it this way or even realizes it. Maybe I'm just the only person who thinks this, but when Astrid came out as the Xenomorph in season 4, I feel like I was looking at Astrid mutated into a Xenomorph, and it was like, oh my God, spot on. But when Astrid came out as the Predator, she says something to the effect of, well, this character is so obsessed with the Predator that they sort of made themselves into one. And it almost felt that way. I was like, especially with all that had happened previously in the episode, I thought this is Astrid wearing a costume versus Astrid has become the Predator.
I agree. And I think too, she didn't do a lot of makeup on this look, which I thought was a strange choice when you see her face through the mask and all. It's It's, just for it being a challenge that decides the final 3. You know what I mean? You might.
The stakes are really high.
Yeah, the stakes were super high. I mean, regardless of any of that, I think it was sad to see both Astrid and Eva go home. I mean,
it was
wild.
Yeah, but another piece of episodic tea I would like to spill. People were sad, I think, that both Astrid and Eva went home, that 2 people went home. But let me tell you this sad bit of information. More than that was supposed to go by then. Because if you notice, when you watch the stage, and you'll see it in the next episode, there is an empty frame. That frame was supposed to be filled. We knew there was going to be 9 episodes, and we intended for there to be a top 2 this year instead of a top 3. So there is absolutely no way people were going to get a top 4 because it was supposed to be a top 2.
And what ended up happening was, like we were referencing earlier, like people give us way too much credit if they think that we can design who goes home exactly when and that it's all predestined, because it's absolutely not. And we really, Dragula every season is kind of like a wild, untamed beast, and we just sort of like ride it to the finish line. And sometimes you have to make crazy decisions in the moment. And when we decided not to send anyone home on the wrestling challenge, we were kind of sealing our fate and changing what we had envisioned for the finale. But we felt like it was deserved because the competitors were just bringing it at such a huge level. We wanted to see more drag. We wanted to see and allow them to show more of what they brought and who they are as artists. They deserve it. They deserve as much visibility as possible.
To the point that we changed the creative of the whole set we built and all the pictures and everything specifically for the Ghostly Gallery to come to this moment. I mean, the fact that we went against that to preserve them, I hope that speaks volumes about what we think about them as artists.
Absolutely. And so after Eva and Astrid meet their fate, we are left with the top 3 monsters that bring us into a very exciting, dramatic, artistic, epic conclusion where we will crown our first Dragula Titan.
Ooh,
That's right.
My God.
It's exciting. On the next episode, we're not going to be talking about the finale. I just want to kind of give people that heads up right now. This is our last recap episode of the season. So we're going to go back to our regular format. We're going to get back to our listener questions and reviewing movies and all the things that you guys love about the podcast. So we're going to be getting back to that. So we will not be discussing the finale because I think we discuss it in great detail on the episode and nothing else needs to be said about it. So as this is our last recap, I do want to thank you all at home for listening to our recaps and for watching the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans. Everyone's loving the recaps, which was surprising to me, but I don't know.
Haven't they got enough of us already?
I know.
I do love when you see the fans online or on Twitter or whatever, and they're like, well, bring back this section of the podcast or bring back this. And I'm like, oh, so we tightened the coin purse a little bit. Everyone's like, but wait, what about the this? Well, it's coming back.
It's coming back. We're going to be doing listener questions. We're going to be doing our movie reviews. Like I said, a little book nook. We have a lot of exciting things planned. And I am personally, as much as I love Titans, I am ready to put it to bed.
All right, that's all the time we have for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on all music platforms and join us back here for a new episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night in 2 weeks. We'll see you then, uglies. The Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is hosted by the Boulet Brothers with their co-host and producer, Ian DeVogler. Engineered and mixed by Carlos Bueno, with music by Neuron Spector.